Welcome back to DR Sports 7. Welcome back to Talking Tactics. Man City have won the Premier League, and it's only right that, as much as it pains us both, mainly me, you're probably quite happy. We've got to talk about it. We've got to talk about how brilliant they've been this season and what Guardiola has done tactically to ensure that Man City get a 5th title under his reign and a 3rd in a row, and they're on course for the treble as well. And there's going to be more and more time to talk about how brilliant Man City are, but they've done particular things this season that I think have been really, really fascinating. We're going to talk about that, Matisse, as well as Arsenal struggles, why they've fallen off so much. It's really an analysis of the title race.
As it should be.
As it should be.
As it should be, because I'm sure next week it will be more focused towards relegation.
That's true.
That's the battle that will be the final day. Nothing else really competing in that situation. I mean, do you want to start with City or Arsenal? I mean, you say that I'm happy, but you know, we played them, and we played them. They played their.
Oh yeah.
They played their.
Sorry, it was such an irrelevant game. I forgot you just played them.
We played their B team, C team. Some people say C team, standing for champions. And I did see them celebrating afterwards. Unfortunately, I did see them lift it, and I wasn't happy. I didn't want you guys to do it because it would have hurt me more. But I'm not happy to see City do it. I think any time somebody lifts the title outside of Leicester, I've been annoyed because I don't want these teams to win it. You know, it's not a fairy tale. It's not it's Leicester, fantastic, great for them. It's not one of those ones at all. If it's not you doing it, you just look with envy.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think this is the first time in a long time I've got quite immune to the celebrations of other clubs because we've been so far off it, and sort of it's almost like before I get annoyed at that other clubs are winning the league, I'm always like, Arsenal, do your job, at least be in with a shout, at least be part of the discussion. This year, in fairness to Arsenal, they were a part of the discussion, but it fell away so far away. We're going to talk about how Arsenal really blew it, but I also want to talk about Man City, how great they've been, why they've been so great, because a lot of people are talking about the genius of Pep Guardiola that I think is right. I think he has evolved his Man City team again, and that is so impressive. But at the same time, it took him 4 or 5 months of tinkering and moving things around and playing around with the team before he settled on what we've got now, which feels like one of the best Premier League teams we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, they wasn't always like this. No. There were the days of mid-January where they were struggling to find a system. Cancelo was kicking out, lashing out. He had to be sent away. And they didn't look like Man City, and it's true. But Pep being Pep, and also I think the UEFA kind of sanctions or investigation coming to a fore, because I was speaking to Big Steve about this on Friday when I was in Manchester, and he felt like that kind of galvanised the club, that galvanised the team.
115 charges from the Premier League.
115 charges. It kind of united everybody against one common threat, and that was UEFA. And I think, you know, before that, you know, Pep was saying, I don't recognise this team, criticising the fans, not being loud enough, sounding like they've kind of just allowed this season to just go a pass in terms of the Premier League, more focused on the Champions League, and they'll just let Arsenal have their season, and, you know, they'll come back next year. But that really spurred them, and that kind of created this us against them mentality. And it's the same thing Jose Mourinho did in his first spell at Chelsea when he did the back-to-back titles. He created a us versus them mentality. And once you do that, you lock everybody in a room and you say, listen, everybody's against us, everybody hates us, nobody likes us. And that kind of galvanizes and creates this motivation, because it's difficult to motivate a team time and time again to go and win a league. They've won 5 out of the last 6, 3 in a row. That's not easy to do. Forget quality, just from a mental aspect. It's very difficult to get people to rise up again for that challenge. So I think what they've done is very impressive, and Pep was kind of speaking about in his post-match analysis the way he's changed his back line to kind of be more catered to dealing with 1v1, you know, kind of wingers in Saka and Martinelli and Vinicius Jr., and the fact that he's not got a Zinchenko or Cancelo out there defending, or he's now got Akes and Akanjis and, you know, Kyle Walkers, and they're gonna try and deal with those situations on transition. Because I remember so many times this season we were talking about Man City in transition, and we were like, you can get at them, you can get at them, and that was partly because of Cancelo and maybe others. You can't say that about Man City anymore. Transitions are not a problem.
Absolutely not. And you could pick out so many Guardiola quotes from that one you mentioned about how he's changed his use of fullbacks, to him talking about Kyle Walker and how Kyle Walker can play as an inverted fullback when they form a 3 in front of a 2, but not when he's coming into midfield to be a part of a double man pivot. And I love it when I hear things like that, because I'm like, yes, us fans are saying it and we're not stupid. Like sometimes from a position of having never been anywhere near that level of coaching, sometimes I think, who am I to analyse what Pep Guardiola is doing with his teams? But to hear him sort of confirm what we've all been saying about the way his team's set up, and what he said even like a year or two ago, where he said, I think it was to Rio Ferdinand in an interview, you've got to keep replenishing the squad, you've got to keep refreshing, almost 2 out, 2 in, always mixing it up, because otherwise it will go stale. And Guardiola's given us so many like nuggets of information. I mean, he himself, I think the way he has been in press conferences has also been a real driving force for the club. I think more than just his players and the football, I think he has really put himself front and centre with his quotes about, Arsenal will win their last 3 games. They go and lose the next 2. Yep. Arsenal will do this. I'd rather be in Arsenal's position. I'd forget the experience we have. I'd rather have the points on the board and be playing the football Arsenal are playing.
Yep.
He's constantly done things to just switch the narrative or take the focus somewhere else or mix things up or call out the fans saying, I need my fans, or whatever it might be. Or like you said with the Chargers from the Premier League, it's, I will be at this club if we're in League Two. Like, he has been front and centre, and as much as we're going to talk about tactics, we can't take away what he is in a weird way tactically done in press conferences to impact the season as well.
Yeah, no, he stepped up his game as well. He's started to become mind games Pep, and he does it in a different way to some of the best. Mourinho being one of them, he does it in a different way. He kind of overpraises you. He kind of, puts the pressure on you by complimenting you. And everybody knows when Pep speaks, people listen.
Yeah.
So he knows that as well, and he knows how the weight of his words. Mm-hmm. And they've even done it in transfer markets where they've kind of half-assed gone for players that they're not really interested in. They're just bumping up the price for Manchester United, for example, and then they go and get the alternative, which is cheaper and actually in the end becomes better. But when you look at the player development as well, another key thing is the Akanjis. They're not world class. Nathan Ake's from Bournemouth. They're not world class, and he's managed to turn these guys into title winners and into key cogs in the team as well. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously, we saw Cole Palmer play at the weekend, Foden, obviously a couple of players from the academy. So Man City are doing everything right. And in the last couple of years, they're not splashing the cash. They are very clear on who they're bringing in. I think last season, their net spend, I don't know what it was. I think they balanced out the books quite well because they sold loads of youngsters. Obviously, to get here, they had to pump in the money. But that is because of
the charges
years of neglect of not being able to spend like us or spend like Man United. So we can't be kind of hypocritical as Big Six fans and say, they pumped in the money. Of course they did. They had to. How were they going to catch up if they didn't? But once they've got here, they're not continuously pumping in the money. They're actually having better recruitment than Chelsea, than Manchester United, who are not doing their homework, who are not doing their scouting. To bridge that gap, you have to put money in. But once you get up there, how do you behave then? Exactly. And they've done that. They've behaved properly.
I agree with that. And what I don't want to do at the same time, and I know I'm saying this as an Arsenal fan, so I hope people understand that I'm coming from as unbiased and as neutral a perspective as possible, that we can't ignore the 115 charges. Obviously, we don't know the outcome of that. We know City are contesting it. And I've always said I will reserve judgment until we know what happens. But at the same time, we can't ignore the context. We can't ignore that there has been charges about financial breaches that will have in some way, shape or form affected performance. But unfortunately, until we have a verdict, we have to just put that aside and appreciate what Pep Guardiola has done with his group of players, and it's really, really impressive. Now, one of the things we've seen this season is the 3-2-5 shape, or the box midfield, or whatever it is, has really become popular. Now, I've got Man City's 4-3-3. Before we explore this a little bit more, I want to look at Arsenal this season, that's been our 11. And we've been playing with Saka and Martinelli splitting. We've gone through this so many times. I'm not going to bore you all too much with it, but it involves Zinchenko coming into midfield. Brighton at the start of the season as well, playing with a back three, with sort of really high and wide wingers and having a midfield three in other ways. But they kind of evolved after with De Zerbi. But that box midfield that we've talked about there, we've seen it from Arsenal. Now, Man City have done it slightly differently this year. And they've been doing it with, I've just got their formation, but they've been doing it with, again, you still get your 5, Gundogan here, De Bruyne here, Rodri, and then Stones coming in. And that's how they've kind of ended their season. Before we talk about it more, there's been a lot of praise for the way Guardiola plays this system and how he's evolved to having Haaland up front and still getting that box midfield. And then I've seen some Arsenal fans saying, well, Arteta was the first to do it with Zinchenko coming in, and they've adapted, what Man City was doing and all that. Let me tell you that the first team to ever do it was in 1960, or maybe not the first. Do you recognise this team? I don't. It's Eintracht Frankfurt. I think they lost this game 6-3, 6-3, 7-3 or something like that. I've got this book here. I recommend everyone gets it. It's called Total Football by Sanjeev Shetty, and it's just really fascinating. And we've got it here. You just go through the different pages. It talks about how different systems over the years and, different lineups, and you've got it here. Oh no, that's Hungary versus England. That's a different one. But my point is, go through this.
Pep is a student of the game. And it's like, he may have gone back in time to go through some of the old teams and maybe even bring those tactics to the fore again. Like football, we speak about Pep kind of changing the game, and he has changed the game. But football wasn't created when Pep started at Barcelona.
Exactly.
Football's been going for hundreds of years. So when you go back and you really do your homework, potentially, and you look and you really study, it's amazing what you can come up with. And this has been done before, Like
I found it. Here we go. Real Madrid 7, Eintracht Frankfurt 3. That's maybe why we haven't seen the formation so much. But it's there. There you go. You've got your 3, you've got your 2, and then you've got your front 5. It has existed in football before, and it's amazing how football goes through so many
cycles,
yeah. Me and Culture Council were just talking on Twitter saying that we think the 10s might be returning. Like, it is fascinating how football evolves. And we've seen we've seen Man City now evolved, but this isn't the first time Pep Guardiola's tried this. This is in 11 when they drew 1-1 with Everton, the first couple months of the Pep Guardiola reign. And this was the team he went out with. Sterling on the right, Sterling on the left, Sane on the right, Iheanacho up front, with Silva and De Bruyne and then Fernandinho Gundogan. He's tried this before. He's tried to get his wingers high and wide and play with just a back 3. They drew that game 1-1. I believe Lukaku scored. And then about a week later, he did the same thing against Southampton. Again, they drew that game 1-1. He eventually moved away from this and went to more of a flat 4-3-3 and had his fullbacks inverted, which we'll talk about. It's interesting that Guardiola has, these things, they haven't just come into his mind this year. He's not just seeing Zinchenko go, cool, I'll do it with Stones. These kind of systems, they're deeply rooted in the foundations of football and tactics, and he tried this 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
And it didn't work, and then he put it away back in a box, and he said, right, I'll put a different template out that I've got. And then, next thing you know, years later, he's brought it back to the fore again, because this time it works, and this time the league maybe are not prepared for it, or they're not expecting it. So this is the brilliant thing about Pep, and this is the brilliant thing about managers that are not stubborn to the point where they only have one formation, like a Conte. A lot of Tottenham fans were really annoyed this season because Conte just would not move away from the back 3, or he would not change the way that they approach games. Pep is the complete opposite. Yes, Pep has a certain way of playing the game, which will never change, which is always to have the ball, to defend with the ball, to play a good, an easy on the eye way of playing. But the way that they do it in terms of the formation, the setup, and the roles, it always changes. And it's good to see, because it just means that no matter who you kind of say Haaland versus Gabriel Jesus dropping in, or it doesn't matter what profiles you give him, he's always got a solution for it, because he's kind of got everything covered, all bases covered. Yeah,
you're absolutely spot on. And again, this is the team when he first won the league. You had De Bruyne getting forward, you had David Silva, by the way, in my opinion, still my favourite ever Man City team, and the best ever Man City team I've seen. I think they were just unfortunate that they did it in an era where Liverpool and Klopp were unbelievable. But it'd be Walker here and Delph here that would come inside. So they dominated by having almost this 3-man shield in front of their 2 centre-backs, so that the 5 could go and play. And this is what Guardiola's saying. Kyle Walker can play this role, but he can't play this role here. And that's the difference. Only their way of addressing it has actually been to bring in John Stones, who's so brilliant on the ball, and then you've got your back 3. And I think people in the comments are calling it a libero. Libero means free in Italian, so I don't know if it comes from that word. But again, little tweaks, but the end result is still brilliant football, dominating midfield, wingers high and wide. A lot of his principles are there, but it's the tweaks that I find so fascinating. I'm genuinely, as much as it pains me because they've won the league, I enjoy talking about this. It's so fascinating.
They're the most interesting team to talk about, and they have the best manager in the world, who always educates and always teaches us something new. Every single season since he's come to the Premier League, there's always been something to learn. There's always something to kind of take from him. It must be a pleasure. It must be a pleasure to have a manager like that. When he leaves, it will be a sad day for the Premier League, because we'll be losing one of, in my opinion, the greatest manager we've seen in football. Some people obviously will have a debate over.
I think he's the best manager of all time.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think especially when his career's done. I don't think it will be such a big topic. But obviously he's got to win the Champions League and certain things need to be crossed off before it's really that conclusive. But when he does go, I think it'll be a big shame to the Prem because there won't be someone as on this level, I don't think.
But also might open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, it will, and that'll be a good thing because let's be honest, whilst he's here, we cannot compete. He can stand there in front of the cameras all he likes and say, we cannot compete, or we cannot replace.
Yeah.
You can. You can replace. You've shown us now with Haaland that he's 6 goals in the Premier League is it this season. You can replace. Yeah. And you can compete. So you're a liar. Yeah. But we are real. We are being real and very honest when we say we cannot. We cannot. But it's an interesting when we talk about can we or cannot, because Man City's recruitment has been so smart and so intelligent and so everything that they've done is it has a point. Mm-hmm. Alvarez coming in for Jesus. They're looking for a more clinical finisher. Mm-hmm. No surprise now they actually become more direct and they become, like you said, you're going to speak about the touches in the box and the amount of shots that they've had this season. Man City have not been this team that kind of, are in your penalty area constantly playing these little passes, but they're just getting the job done by being more direct and sometimes just be like against Arsenal. I mean, it was just De Bruyne, Haaland, that was it. Like there was no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And they
it wasn't like
stifled
that.
what we were trying to do as well.
It wasn't like that. So it's interesting.
They are, you've got 4 defenders in there that defend, and you mentioned that Guardiola quote, and they've got real technicians. Gundogan is box to box, he's energy, but he's brilliant on the ball. De Bruyne, listen, he's no lightweight player. Yes, it's all about his creativity and his goals and what he does in the final third, but he's a presence in there as well. And in Grealish, Mahrez, Bernardo, Foden, whoever, you've got a little bit of everything, a little bit of trickery, a little bit of pace, whatever, and it's all there to supplement Haaland as well. And his goals, I mean, we can't ignore his impact on this team. Now, it's not, we've done the Haaland discussion on this show, which is why we're not going to go back into his numbers. We did a whole section on how his numbers compare to some of the greats in the game. But when you just compare Man City last season to this season, where they've gone from the false 9 and a slightly different setup to now having an out-and-out striker, they've had to get their extra midfielder by bringing in John Stones from defence. It's interesting how they've only scored 6 goals less, but their XG this season, albeit with a game to play, has dropped to 75.2 from the 88.7 of last season. They've had only 560 shots to 704 last year and 1,226 touches in the attacking penalty area compared to the 1,499. So they are far more efficient.
This is so Haaland.
It's all Haaland, right?
It screams Haaland.
Yeah.
Because it's like he's a better finisher than anybody they had last year, so the XG doesn't need to be as high because he's going to take more chances. And the touches in the penalty area. This guy, at times, Haaland, I tell you, he's had 5 touches and a half, 6 touches and a half. I think he may have broken the record that Lukaku set for touches in a half. This guy he's not interested in touching the ball. Sometimes they just play around him. So I'm not surprised to see the guy that is in the middle of the box in the penalty area, who used to be a Jesus and used to want to link up and drop deep. I'm not surprised at all. Yeah. I'm really not.
Yeah.
But the goals, when you have someone that scores 36 goals in a season, the goals will still stack up.
Because when you think about it, Man City have lost a lot of creativity. They had a false 9, whether that be Jesus, De Bruyne, Foden, whoever they used in that role. They then had Cancelo at right back or left back. They then had Zinchenko at times as well.
Yeah.
Kyle Walker used to get forward a lot more than he does now. So you had in Zinchenko, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Foden in that false 9. You almost had like 2 extra creative players, one from fullback, one from false 9.
Yeah.
And now they've gone, no, we need a little bit more defensive solidarity. Yeah, basically, and we're going to Haaland's just going to sit in the box, as you said. So there's more in that midfield to do, but they're brilliant. And actually, where you had penetration out wide with Sterling, Jesus, Sane, whoever, now they've got more creativity there. So he just moves it around. He just takes, I'm going to take that responsibility from you, and I'm going to put that here, and I'm just going to shake it up. And, I do want to credit Arteta, because he did brings Zinchenko into midfield, and he has played Tomiyasu at left back and White right back and got 4 centre backs in the back 4. Arteta's done some of those things as well, but to the level that Guardiola's
Is there a danger of Arteta kind of copying Pep a lot and maybe taking Pep's players like Gundogan, I've seen you linked with, and always just being a little bit off, because it is Pep and he's always one step ahead.
Maybe.
And this is what I talked about before in terms of he's got all of his minions, whether it's Vincent Kompany, whether it's Arteta, whether it's Xabi Alonso, whoever. There's loads of them. They're everywhere. Xavi, but they're never going to be good enough for the original. And he's just going to have all these guys copying him.
I believe in you, Mikel.
Do him favours and give him players and give him false hope and say, oh, don't worry, it's going to be okay. They're there, you're the best. They're there, don't worry, you're leading the race. And then he's going to be like, bang, I'm gonna strut my stuff now, and I'm the original. No one's better than the original. It's just the case.
Yesterday, I would have probably sat on the show and said, no, hold on, let's give Arteta credit. He played Tomiyasu left back and White right back. He told Zinchenko to come into midfield and create that box with the back three. You know, he evolved what Pep did. I would have argued that.
Was he not? But that's what Pep was doing before.
Well, he was doing it slightly differently, until I found this, which I showed you before. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, so he has tried this before. And guess who was there on his coaching staff? Mikel Arteta.
Mikel Arteta, exactly.
So maybe look, they're all.
Our Arsenal fans are really going to try and tell me that Arteta's teaching Pep something. Come on now.
I tried.
You tried.
And
did you all really try that one with us?
And I disproved myself.
You tried to pull a fast one, really, all of you?
I've disproved myself. But look, all I will say, look, I think Arteta's going to go. I really think Arteta's on course. We're going to talk about Arsenal now, but Pep, man, he's a genius, and fair play to him. And the scary thing is they can get better and better. But let's talk about Arsenal because it's been a really flat end to the season. I'm not going to go on a rant. I've done it like 3 times already on AFTV. I believe that Arsenal needed to finish the season as strongly as possible. I believe they needed to make City earn it. Yep. Okay, cool. You had that poor run with Southampton, West Ham, then Man City smashed us 4-1 and 3-1 at the Emirates. We weren't deserving of the title. But I felt that our work this season had deserved us to take them to the final week and say, you know what, we got to 90, you got to 94, nothing we could do about it. That's a really impressive tally. We're now at a point where Arsenal are going out really sad, in my opinion. And I'm really, really disappointed. I still am 2 days on. I'm really angry with that performance against Forest and the second half against Brighton. I'm going to give Arsenal one thing, which is that this 11, which was our best 11, went out 6 times. I mentioned this last week on Talking Tactics. Apologies for repeating myself. But that is a shame. It is a shame that we couldn't see our best 11 go out regularly. And when we have had long-term injuries, it's been to Jesus, key player. Partey missed Old Trafford and the game at the Emirates against Man City. Saliba missing the run-in. It has been unfortunate. And now we've lost Zinchenko the last 2 games and the last game of the season as well. That has been a shame. But at the same time, we could have done so much better in this run, and I'm so disappointed. Yeah,
I wasn't expecting Arsenal to kind of capitulate like this. Last 8 games, 2 wins. It's poor. It's really, really poor, especially when you saw the way that they started the season. They were by far and away the best team. They played the best football, and they were a joy to watch. And I had to give them the favourites tag by default, not because
they earned it.
Not because I ever felt like Arsenal were definitely going to ever win this Premier League, but they had to be favourites purely because the points gap was so big and they were playing so well. But it was always going to come down to the last stretch. And to be honest, they've surprised me in a poor way because I thought Arsenal would get down to the last week, at minimum at the last week. Yeah. It didn't have to even be the final day, but minimum take this to the Chelsea game, to the Brighton game on Wednesday. Make City have to play their strong team. No, they're not sending out Cole Palmer, Ortega, all these guys, Sergio Gomez against Chelsea at the Etihad. Make sure that you force them to play their strongest team. And Arsenal haven't done that. And I think, I don't know if it's a mental thing because the pressure is off now. There's no pressure on the Nottingham Forest game.
I agree.
The title was done at Southampton. That fixture there.
That's wrong, by the way. That should say 0-3. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. But this game is when it all ended. So, the pressure's off here. Great stuff. The pressure's off here. Great stuff. Pressure's off here. Pressure's off here. What's going on here? Like, why the second half capitulation at the Emirates? Why the performance against Nottingham Forest? Why? I get. I actually understand this. I actually understand that because it's what unfortunately Gary Neville said to everyone, which was when Arsenal push comes to shove, they're gonna falter, they're gonna frail because the pressure of the games leading Manchester City in the last 10 when the fans are starting to say, oh, we might do this. That's gonna take its toll. But I don't understand the last couple of games at all.
Player or manager for you? Players or manager? Who are you looking at most?
I think Xhaka playing at left back is weird. I saw.
To be fair, I don't think he did. I think the 11 said that. But
a lot
I
of
think
people
it was
were
more
complaining about
Partey
that.
right
Was he?
back.
Okay, so
Yeah.
was you okay with that?
You know what they did, right? Let me just get it up here because I've got this from Tactical Insight.
Yeah, because I saw the starting 11s and I was like.
So what he tried to do basically in this game was flip it. So Partey was playing the Zinchenko role. So where Trossard and Saka got forward and Ødegaard and Xhaka got forward, he wanted, instead of it normally be Jorginho coming that way and Zinchenko coming in, Jorginho drifted more to the left and Partey came in field, and that was the build-up shape. I think it was a nice idea, but it didn't work. But then we were so lopsided because all our best players were on the right, basically. But yeah, it was a very strange idea. But I guess what I want to know is, do you think this is on the players or the manager? Because when I look at this run-in, I'm just going to take it back to here. We beat Leeds. So we came back from the international break on fire. We smashed Leeds. This is all from the international break. You draw 2-2 at Liverpool, having been 2-0 up, but we went 2-0 up.
Yeah.
So clearly Arteta got something right, because we went out there, we went 2-0 up.
Yeah.
Same with West Ham. Do you need Arteta to be the difference to beat Southampton at home? No. And Ramsdale gives the ball away within 26 seconds we concede. I think for City he was naive, playing Rob Holding. I think that was a disaster. Kivior showed us what he's about. Cool, we won. That first half against Brighton, sorry, I keep saying to everyone, ignore the fact that I've got the score the wrong way around. But that first half against Brighton, we started well.
Yeah.
We could have been 1 or 2 up. The players got to take their chances. When the openings come, they've got to do better. And again, Forest away, I just think Arteta's not blameless. Of course he's not.
No, but
he's
I
had
think
his part hand. But I think the players have folded here.
There are some individuals that have folded in this run-in. I think Partey's dropped off massively. I think Zinchenko has had an absolute mare in these last couple of games in this run-in. I think Saka has definitely taken a hit from the fact that there's no one to rotate with.
Yeah, exhausted.
And there's been a lack of trust in maybe some of the new signings. Maybe Jorginho could have played a bigger part. Maybe Kivior could have played a bigger part. Trossard got player of the month in March. We didn't see him in April too much. So there are questions of Arteta in terms of maybe utilising the squad a bit better.
I agree.
But I do think Ramsdale, I do think Ødegaard giving the ball away and it leading to a goal. I do think a lot of individual errors have come in costly moments, and it's all about up here. Because if you give Arsenal this run-in with the way they were playing at the start of the season, up until
That's not a terrible run-in.
Up until this game, Arsenal are going through that with flying colours. You know, I think Man City away is probably the one. Man City away and Liverpool away are always going to be difficult, but I'm backing Arsenal to take care of the rest. So yeah, I think there's been a mental kind of block moment, and it's the same thing that happened last season in a top 4 fight. You've gone up a level over the course of the season when it. Not saying it hasn't mattered, because it has, because this is why you're in this position, but it's less pressurised. There isn't relegation scraps. There isn't European scraps. Everybody's just playing their games. You've gone through that at a higher level, but when push comes to shove again, for the second year in a row, you guys have faltered when the pressure's on. That has to stop.
I agree.
Because if this Arsenal team continue to keep failing when the pressure's on, your seasons won't amount to anything. You can't really raise the bar any higher than you did this season from the start of the season up till the Leeds game. You were basically flawless.
Yeah.
You dropped points to Southampton and at Old Trafford, that was about it. You guys had won nearly all of your games. You went to Brighton, you smacked them. So it's like, you can't get any more perfect than that. They have to fix this. They have to fix the mental side of it towards the end. I know you've got a new Labrador that's come in. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's going to change the mental side, but it might bring the happiness back, because obviously you're going to need a pick-me-up. And I think the fans are going to need to pick me up. But
I think signings is the answer.
Signings is key.
Bringing in players that get the players
signing
excited,
players
the fans
that
excited.
have already done it mentally, but not just done it mentally in a team that's won it, being key players for a team that's won it. Because there's a difference between a Gundogan and a Jesus. There's a difference between a Zinchenko and potentially even a Declan Rice. Because if you're going to go and get him, at least he could win a Conference League and have the weight of, the pressure for a team and be captain. Then just kind of being a rotational piece and then be asked to step up to be a key figure. It's a big jump.
It is a big jump, and I want to compare how Arsenal rank with other challengers, other runners-up of the last 10 years, or 9 years, shall I say. There's a lot of numbers here, but Arsenal, obviously we've got them there at the bottom. They've still got one more game to play, hence the asterisk by the, they're on 81 points, they could get to 84. They're on 25 wins, they could get to 26. They're on 83 goals scored, that could be 85. But when you compare to some of these other teams, I'm almost trying to figure out who we more like. Because I was hoping that we would do something like Liverpool 21-22, that 92 points, 28 wins and all that. And look, we could have got to that. We could have got to 28 wins easily. Or even, to be fair, we're the same amount of points as Man City in 1920. Again, 81, so we could match them for wins. We drew more games, but they lost more games. They scored 102 goals. But again, it's this big thing, 43 goals conceded. Man United conceded more in 2021, but that's it. 43, that's where we're just conceding too many goals.
I said it reminded me a bit of Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers.
So 13-14, so here we go. So their record was 84 points, which we could equal, 26 wins, which we could equal, 6 draws, 6. So we could have their exact same record.
That was the team it reminded me
of. They scored way more goals.
Purely because of the goals conceded. Now, Suarez is on another level to anything that you've got at the football club, and I think that's the difference. I think a Sturridge and a Sterling, you have those type of players, to be honest. I don't think that's so. That goal metric is massively inflated because Suarez was one of the best strikers on the planet. You guys have got Jesus who can't put his chances away, but everything else stacks up. That's why that team really stands out to me, because the defence is leaky. We saw the goals conceded at Aston Villa, the goals conceded at home to Bournemouth, so on. That's not sustainable. That defence needed to tighten up. It needed to get a grip. And it was a team that was great to watch, that Liverpool team as well. Like we said with Arsenal, really, really good team to watch, very attacking, very energetic from the front, really trying to win the ball high up the pitch, relentless with trying to score goals constantly, trying to put teams away in the first 15, 20 minutes. However, that defence really didn't stack up. And then when you look at that Liverpool team, you could say there's maybe the leadership, obviously Gerrard was there and the whole slip, but outside of Gerrard, I'm trying to go through that Liverpool team. I couldn't think of too many other leaders. The SSS was never going to be a leadership kind of situation. The defence was awful. There's no leaders in that back line. It was just Gerrard or bust, really. And Arsenal, you could say, leadership-wise, are not quite there. Xhaka's obviously leaving now. He's a leader in a way, but he hasn't done it on the biggest stages. He hasn't won titles, so he's lacking experience even in himself. So the people that you've had to rely upon don't really have the CV or the portfolio to lean on when they're saying, guys, I've been here, I've done it, this is what we need to do. No one in that Arsenal dressing room can really say that. And the case similar with Liverpool, they didn't really have any title winners either.
I just wanted them, Arsenal, after they beat Newcastle, they had 3 games, Brighton at home, Forest away, Wolves at home. You take that last 3 games in a bid to get to 90 points, and it would have been the best tally behind Liverpool's 97 and 92. We know how good they've been. And I wanted just to be able to say, like, we have been serious runners up and we've been a serious team. We didn't get over the line. We've been a serious team. Now our numbers are more comparable to Liverpool 13-14 you mentioned. The season after, they were appalling. They sacked Brendan Rodgers. Man City 14-15 didn't actually go and win a title until I think 2018.
2018 after we won it, which was this season. Tottenham finishing in second.
Arsenal 15-16 finished. They finished 5th the season after. Tottenham never got to those heights again. Man United under Mourinho, we know how that ended. And then Liverpool, fair enough, brilliant. But look at the points tally, 97. Man City hit 81, but they bounced back and win the league the year after. Man United, the worst runners up in Premier League history, by the way. Oh, okay, maybe not, but they're pretty poor. This is what I mean. We're not now in that conversation, and I know it maybe doesn't matter because there's so much other context, like how young this team is, maybe injuries, I don't know. There's context to all these things. And also the league's got harder. I will say that. The league, in my opinion, has got harder. There's better teams. So maybe that 81 points in 22-23 is more impressive than Man United's 81 in 17-18. Maybe. But I'm just annoyed that we didn't end strong, and that's why it mattered to me, because I wanted to stand out and say, look, this was a really good next step, but we're going somewhere, not this was the peak of this squad. And we don't know if it is. I just really hope it's not.
The final thing I have to say is as much as I banter Liverpool, that is just horrendous.
Unbelievable.
I could never, ever get over that. And I don't think they ever will. As much as I'll banter them and say bridesmaid and, it doesn't count for anything, I've said that on the morning show because this really doesn't count for anything. This 81 points tally is not that impressive, unfortunately, when you compare it to other runners-up. Like you're not even standing out like that.
This is my point. Yeah, it's my point.
But that team there, 97 points, and you don't pick up a title. Do you know what? Fair enough. Like that doesn't count for anything, but I'm not going to rub it in your face because it is a monstrosity. They nearly went unbeaten.
Conceded.
Can you imagine if they'd gone unbeaten and they would have still lost it, right? Because that was the Centurions year.
I think. So it was Man City. So it was Man City who beat them in that one game. So actually, if they'd drawn that game, they'd have been winners.
They would have won it, yeah, because City would have dropped points.
Unbelievable.
Travesty. That is a travesty.
Right. We've analysed the title race. We've given plenty of praise to Pep Guardiola and Man City. They deserve it. They are winners once again. A big thank you to Matisse for joining us.
Pleasure.
Where did they go wrong for Arsenal, and where do they rank amongst the challengers of the last 10 years? Can Arsenal actually kick on and go on and challenge again and be better next year? I mean, there's a lot of work to do, but can they? That's the big question, and what do these numbers tell us? So big thanks, Matisse. We'll be back next week, and you're right, it will be all focused on the relegation battle, who got over the line and why. It's not looking good for Leeds, but they do have Tottenham at home next, and Everton as well, I think, have a home game against Bournemouth, I believe. So they're looking like they might be all right, but we will see. Big thanks to everyone. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Go check out all the other content on DR Sports as well, and go subscribe to On Track GP. The F1 will be returning very soon, and there's always content there as well, so go check that out. Big thanks. See you very soon.